Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's Thursday, James. Timestamp Thursday, the 29th of December. Nice and early, 8:45 in the morning. Game week 17 is wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. And we have kind of 24 hours, not quite, maybe more like 36 hours until game week 18 kicks off. And so here we go, full pause, usual drill.
Yeah, tight turnaround, 6:15 p.m. UK time deadline on Friday. And then we've obviously got a 4 p.m. UK time deadline on Monday for game week 19. So, this is the real Christmas period in terms of quick, snappy decisions and stuff. It's nice that we've got kind of today with no football in terms of a break, whereas there's less than 24 hours between the end of Forest Chelsea on Sunday and the beginning of game week 19. So I would say use today usefully for deciding what you want to do in terms of transfers, although we're all selling the same player, aren't we?
Well, Reece James, what's up? Do you know what? To be honest with you, I didn't check his ownership, which I should do. Let's have a quick look. It's only 19.7%, James. So yes, for the active players within the community, he's probably much higher. But he's not.
Jesus' ownership is still about 35%.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
So,
I think I heard on the Who Got the Assist guys yesterday when they're looking at market forces, which they do quite regularly. Who's the most sold player? Jesus. Like, what the hell is he in this game week? The most sold player. But yeah, it can happen. So how did you get on overall? What did you get? 93 points. Not bad, right?
Yeah, decent. A little behind yourself, but yeah, I can't be disappointed with that. Game week rank inside the top million. I think psychologically you always want to start well. It was interesting. I dropped outside the top million during the game week. I've had a green arrow this week. I'm up to 580k. I dropped to about 1.1 million after the 3 o'clocks on Boxing Day because I only had 12 points from one player, and that one player obviously everybody else had as well, in Kieran Trippier. So yeah, I was miles behind because I hadn't had players go yet. So I've been on the catch up all week. Disappointed, I guess, with no Cancelo start and KDB not returning last night, because you're looking at it thinking if Haaland goes off, which he did, there's every chance this is a 100-pointer. But yeah, pretty happy. I went with the same team that I discussed on Friday's draft, bar I left the office on Friday, made my way home, saw Marco Silva's comments, make sure I watched the video and everything of his comments about Mitrovic, and I thought, I tell you what, he might not play till their double in game week 19. I'm going to move that. And to be honest, I spent about 30 seconds thinking, yeah, it's Martial. Martial's the one I'll go to. So he's obviously scored. Mitrovic staying in the team would have taken me over the 100 as well. But I don't think I can have any regrets on that. To be honest, the information came out and it was like, this is a bit dodge. Not happy about this, because he said that last time where he'd said, if he doesn't make this weekend, he'll definitely be back for the next one. And he missed both. And this time he said the same thing and he was back for the first one. And not only that, they were pissing the game at 2-0 up against 9 men. And he still left him on so he could make sure that he scored and stuff. So, yeah, those who held on, really well done. But I think there'll be a lot of, I was going to go with Mitrovic. But yeah, happy with what I've got elsewhere. Kepa's 9 was unexpected. Not unexpected a clean sheet against Bournemouth, but unexpected to have a bonus go with that. Yeah, 12 for Trips, 12 for Salah, 14 for Rashford, really good, 8 for Martinelli, 6 for Martial, 26 captaincy for Haaland, like most people. So yeah, 93, nice little couple of 100k jump to start off with. Yeah, pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, so similar for me in terms of slightly more, 99. Give me a flake with that, sir.
Hey.
366k game week rank, which I was happy with. And I jumped up from about 640,000, James. Where are we? Yeah, 640 to 412. So again, happy with it. And also, I mean, it's all well and good trying to judge it on 1 week. You've got to decide how do you feel about your squad overall as well. So other than the Reece James issue, I'm fairly happy with that. And you can say, yeah, you can't complain. But the reality is I got 99 points with 3 players that didn't return. The first being Reece James. and he was 7 or 8 minutes away from returning. Darwin Nunez, I mean, how he didn't return, I don't know. And then finally Cancelo getting dropped. That's like the chances of that are pretty slim as well. So there was every chance that could have been a full house. If Cancelo hadn't got on the pitch, I'd have had Ben White come on, and that would have been the round 100 club. But 99, I'll take it. I feel very comfortable with my team. When I announced in the when we talked about squads on Friday, the draft kind of podcast that we did, my playing back four stayed the same in Kepa, Trippier, Cancelo, Reece James, and Ben White was still in there. I ended up going with Nico Williams over Kinder Bueno. I had the money, and I didn't want to take the risk on Bueno then being dropped or not making it into the team. I thought Nico Williams is more likely to maybe be in and around, albeit Aurier played. But Bueno came off after 53 minutes anyway. So Nico Williams ended up being my fourth sub. I had Mitrovic and Nketiah as a front two to go with Haaland. The Mitrovic news was a frustration, and it kind of took me back to the drawing board where I was looking at, okay, I could go Martial like you. But Nunez was just like a little devil sitting on my shoulder. And I was just looking at their fixtures thinking, you know what, I really want to go with Darwin Nunez. If I go with Darwin Nunez and also Martial, I had to find a little bit of money. And I had Kulu and Foden, two players at 8 million, that 8 million value that we talk about in midfield. And I dropped them both down.
Rashford's ownership, fucking Miggy, didn't you?
Rashford's ownership was going through the roof. So I was like, this is one where I've got to play the ownership game. So I went with Rashford because of the ownership. And then, Almiron at that price, the way I just looked at it and thought, if I need to bench him, because I've got Pereira on the bench who's going to come on for a double coming up, and likelihood is, let me just go with Almiron. So I ended up with Almiron and Rashford and 1.7 in the bank, which gave me options of, if I need to upgrade Martial, I can do that. If I wanted to turn Rashford into an 8 million midfielder, I can do that. I had loads of options basically with what I could do with the money. There was one final thought, which was, I've got exactly the right amount of money to bin Martinelli and go to Saka. And then I've got an 8 million midfielder sitting in there. And do I really want to? I think Saka's got more potential over the next few weeks than Martinelli, more than likely. But had Nketiah failed and not delivered, or if Arteta decides that he doesn't want to play Nketiah up top, I reckon he'll play Martinelli further forward than he'll play Saka further forward. So I just couldn't justify dropping Martinelli for Saka. I think, as much as I think Saka's going to score more points, it could, it's not like a clear cut thing for me. So I ended up sticking with Martinelli, and so ended up with Rashford, Martial, Darwin, and Almiron instead of Foden, Kulu, and Nketiah and Mitrovic. And it's paid off this week.
But you had Martinelli since the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, when you sell a player like that, who you're up 0.8 on, and it's not like he's performing badly, like he scored again, you've got to be so sure when you sell it, I think. Because psychologically, you're going to block yourself from going back. You're going to think, shit, I sold at 6.4 and now I've got to pay 6.9 to get him back, for example. You're going to do yourself a disservice. You've got to be sure. You've got to be sure. And there'll be people who are obviously not selling, but have had the value in players like Almiron and Trippier. They're similar case scenarios, right? You've got to be really sure if you're selling these players. And it's not to say that you can't move them on. You just need to be sure. That's it. And these guys are proving great value. It's why we've obviously got such a kind of template at the moment that says, I know one dickhead who doesn't have Miguel Almiron, and that's me. But then I can't complain, right? I kept Martinelli's returned. I went Rashford, 14-pointer. I've managed to squeeze Salah and De Bruyne in. Salah's returned well. I mean, you could make the case, Suj, and say you beat me by 6 points because you've got Almiron and I've got De Bruyne. But actually, it's Almiron's points over Ben White. It's more a realistic comparison because De Bruyne and Darwin Nunez have scored the same, basically. So if you wanted to group those together,
and that's
where the 6 points is.
That's a lucky penalty for West Ham. Well, I say lucky in the sense that other than the penalty, West Ham offered fuck all. So the clean sheet was there to be had for Arsenal, other than that one mistake that Saliba made. So, these are fine margins. The average overall was 72, mate. That's a monster average.
But live average was
Even
way
higher.
higher.
Mm.
Yeah, I think top 10K was about 88 or 89, roughly. Massive. And that's because, quite simply, the templates performed really well, even in the sense that, Almiron versus Rashford, for example, they both performed quite well. It's only really some of the defensive players that have kind of let people down, and City a little bit last night. Otherwise, the majority of stuff, and Reece James, obviously, the majority of stuff that was popular has gone off.
Yeah.
That's why the average was obviously really high. What it means is when the bad week comes, we're all going to have the bad week together. And it could well be this weekend or next midweek, for example. Reece James is going to go for me, Suj. Is there any doubt for you about that?
No, he's going for me too. At the moment, the way I've set my team up, I've just put Ben White in, bench Reece James, put him third on the bench, and I'm happy to go again. We don't have the information at the moment.
Yeah, we do.
So, is he?
Yeah,
I know he left in a knee brace. Is he gone for a while? Is he?
Yeah, he's about a month, mate, at least.
Oh, fine. Okay. Well, we do have the information, listeners, and he's got to go. The thing is now,
he's not going to play in that double game week.
Right.
Put it that way.
So for me now, when I was looking at transfers and what's coming up, it was a little bit around planning for the upcoming doubles and how much do I actually really give a shit about the doubles. So the first one coming up is Chelsea Fulham. As it stands, I've only got 2 players, Reece James out of the equation. So the likelihood is that I will move Martial on for Mitrovic. But I look at it in the same week, Martial's got Bournemouth at home, right?
I know, yeah.
Do I really want to? I'm more likely to want to move Darwin on because he's got Brentford away and they're a bit strong and physical. But I suppose coming back to it, my point is I'm not that sure that I necessarily want to lean too much into these upcoming doubles. I could add another Chelsea defender in place of Reece James. But do I really want to? Who do I go to? Who's really going to give me that upside and is nailed on to start? So I'm not sure on that. I mean, like Azpilicueta maybe might be the safe option on right back. No, need a right back. Is he going to play Loftus-Cheek there again?
I mean, they might buy someone.
They
could do that.
Yeah,
they could play Raheem Sterling at wing back if they decide to switch it up system. I mean, what they did against Bournemouth was obviously they kept Reece James pretty high. Cucurella was tucking in from left back to like left-sided centre back. And Dennis Zakaria, I actually thought some of his passing was a little bit sloppy the longer the game went on. I actually thought he did a really good job positionally. He was kind of basically covering in terms of starting attacks from kind of an inside right back position that was allowing James to push on. And Christian Pulisic was dropping in a little bit deeper from left wing towards left wing back to kind of, and Potter loves to do that, right? He'll have parts where you look at a system, but within that system, the parts are going to move towards another system. And it's difficult to envisage what the moving parts are for Chelsea now with Reece James out, because he's not going to go and push Azpilicueta stupidly high. So it could be that he changes it to a back three, for example. It could be that he shoves Cucurella back out to left wing back if they want to change to a three, and he uses him to go really high on that side. That doesn't feel particularly right either. Or of course they could stay with a back four, but then he's not going to be able to move the parts in the same way that he'd like to. I think Cucurella is probably the one if you wanted to stay within Chelsea investment. He's 5.1. He may go up in price today. Ben Chilwell's is still a little bit away, so you'll probably be okay as far as the double. So Cucurella's a consideration for me. I think that would be the Chelsea one I'd go to. I wouldn't be comfortable paying more for Thiago Silva or Koulibaly. I don't think there's enough in it. And I feel like at any point Potter could just put Chalobah back in, for example.
What are your thoughts around these upcoming doubles? So we've got Fulham and Chelsea in 19, Spurs and City in 21, is it? 21? 20, sorry. And then obviously Arsenal.
If neither of them draw in the FA Cup third round.
Yeah. So I mean, I could replace Reece James with a Chelsea defender, and I can get Mitrovic in. As it stands, I've got two, Pereira and Kepa, and then for the Spurs Arsenal double game, I've just got the two City at the moment. Spurs City, sorry. I've got the two City, Haaland and Cancelo. But do I really want to dive into more City when they've got United and Spurs, two tough games? You've got Arsenal and City. Like I don't even see that as a worthy double game week to want to dive into more Spurs. I feel like these doubles are avoidable. Like, don't break your team to try and get loads of doubles with these. And that's where my simple option, my preferred option for Reece James at the moment, James, is Andy Robertson, because I've got the money to do it, and he's flying.
Makes perfect sense if you've left that money in the bank, mate.
Yeah, he's the one for me that I think I want.
I'm okay with that. That's not a consideration for me because I haven't got that money left. And this is the sort of thing where teams may start to differentiate a little bit. Yep. No, I'm not going to go thumping around valuing my team to try and force in a Robertson or a Van Dijk or a Trent. That's not a consideration for me.
If I buy, just so I could add, if I buy Andy Robertson, I can still turn Martial into Mitrovic the week after. So I've still got a little bit more left there lying around.
I think Mitrovic, just to come back to the doubles, I would consider captain Mitrovic in 19. And I don't think there's many weeks I'm going to be considering not. The fact that Haaland does go to Chelsea, he's still very, very capable. And you know it'll burn bad if it goes wrong. But it might be one where I feel like I can take the chance of it. The one scary thing with Mitrovic, of course, is he's on these 4 yellows. He could get a 1-pointer against Leicester, miss Chelsea, and you know what he's like. He can be a bit volatile. But at the same time, he might think, oh, I know for the team, I've got to be there for Chelsea, bearing in mind it's Fulham's big game and stuff. So I'm a bit indecisive about it because the player that obviously would open up Mitrovic for me will be Martial. And I'm not fussed about Martial, to be honest. I know he scored the other night. It didn't overly impress me.
No, it wasn't desperate to keep him.
But Bournemouth at home, he's still a haulable game, right? And I think Mitrovic's 2 games were more difficult than Manchester United's on paper, right? So there's another game for me to kind of make a decision on that over the weekend. My instinct is at the moment, I'd probably just keep Martial and then actually look to move on probably to Wilson. In 20, Newcastle have a good 4-game run from there, and then come back to Mitrovic in perhaps 23, for example, because Fulham after the double have got Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea. And you should factor that into your thinking as well. So after the double, Fulham have got tough fixtures. Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea. Now for Mitrovic particularly, and Andreas Pereira are obviously a benchable asset, absolutely fine. But if you go for a Tim Ream or something, which you can do, and that's probably the defensive one if you wanted to look at it, okay, they had a clean sheet at the weekend, but they give up a lot of chances. I wouldn't expect a lot. You're going to bench him for forthcoming weeks afterwards. Chelsea, the double, the first game's Man City. What do we actually expect?
Yeah.
If I go for Cucurella, it's as much about the fact that it's not in the Forest this weekend. It's Crystal Palace in 20. Then they've got Fulham, West Ham and Southampton 22 to 24 after Liverpool in 21. And actually, if you look at Chelsea's home fixtures, after they play City, they haven't got anyone left at the Big 7, except for Liverpool to be rearranged, so would be part of a double, and Newcastle's last day of the season. So in terms of home game runs, long way. But then what's the point of me thinking about Cucurella till the end of the season? I mean, it's not really. Yeah. It could change quite quickly. And let's be honest, I thought he was fine on Tuesday night, but he hasn't had a great start to his Chelsea career. And in terms of City and Tottenham and double 20, 1, it might not even happen. 2, I've got 3 City, so that's nothing to think about. Am I bothered about getting Tottenham for it? No. What, against the 2 best teams in the country currently? Not really. Now, it's worth saying that Harry Kane in those exact 2 fixtures last season, I want to say 23 points. But the chance of repeating that is pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
And if it is a double, you ain't captain over Haaland, are you, with a double, right?
No.
So no, I think if it's not Cucurella, I'm going to look at other moves other than these doubles.
Do you know who the one that I would consider for you, if you're not going to go to Almiron, and you've only got Trippier, would be Botman if you wanted to go down in value. Because at 4.4, I looked at either, if from Reece James, do I go up, down, or stay at the same value? If I'm going up, I'm going to Robertson. If I'm going down, I think I'd go to Botman. The only thing stopping me going to Botman would be blocking myself from Wilson or anybody else from Newcastle, should I want to, because I've got two already. But if you've only got the one and you're not fussed about Almiron, then Botman's a decent shout at 4.4.
So he's the most likely one I'm buying.
Okay, understood.
It's obviously benchable.
Yeah.
At that price. If I look at game week 19, obviously they go to Arsenal and you think, well, that's a bit grim. But then I definitely want to play Pereira for his double, so that's fine. And I probably was of original thinking I was probably going to bench Trippier in that week, but he's still on the corners and shit. Like they could get beat 4-1 and he could still get 4 points or something, right?
Yeah.
So
they always scored the goal after he gets taken off, substituted in the 85th minute. They always concede, so you'll be fine with his clean sheet points as well.
They won't be taking him off at 85 minutes at the Emirates if he's playing the whole game and he gets injured. And their fixtures are good, right? So if you go into Newcastle now, if I'm benching against Arsenal, my run is Leeds at home, Fulham at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Bournemouth away.
It's decent.
4.4, he's locked. He's been absolutely brilliant for them. I think Eddie Howe was treading carefully with him at the start of the season. He will get interest. And he's kind of almost the only way to get anything out of Trippier at the moment. He used to have the combination with him, which I found when I went with Nick Pope earlier in the season. I know there was a few people on treble ups. So I just think for value, yeah, why not that? And I can make week-to-week decisions whether I want to play Trippier, Ben White, or Pereira. Kind of brings Pereira back to the table in terms of maybe starting him more often, and also coming down in the money, putting like 1.7 million-ish in the bank. Then if I do want to go Pereira to Almiron, or I want to get off Greenwood and get towards like Solanke level or something, then I can do these sort of things. So Botman's the most likely for me. I haven't ruled out Cucurella. The Tottenham boys are bothering me, and it's not because of the double. It's the immediate in front. It's Villa and Palace. I'm thinking, can I have something from Matt Doherty? Matt Doherty at 0.2 more than Sven Botman just feels so much more exciting from a potential output of what it could be. And I think the fact that even Perisic has come back fit, played 90 minutes at Brentford, 5.5, he's actually interesting. And I wonder if there'll be a little movement towards Perisic the closer we get towards deadline. I think there's an emotion in me that doesn't want to go for the Tottenham players, because let's be honest, if they do well, I'm going to be really happy either way. I'm not certain how long Doherty stays in the team. We said this on Clash of the Correspondents that perhaps even for the games in the double, Arsenal and City, he might revert to Emerson as a stronger player defensively. Perisic, though, I think we might actually finally be in a position where he's going to play the majority of games here. And these one-pointers are going to stop. As long as Tottenham stop conceding goals, which there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, having conceded in the last 9 games first, which is 6 Premier League games in a row we've conceded first as well. So I haven't ruled out the 2 Tottenham boys. And I think if you're feeling fruity and you want an offensive player and obviously can't get up like you to Robertson, yeah, consider the 2 Tottenham boys. But I think if you go Doherty, you have to consider that it might be short-term.
Yeah. Well, I just had a quick look, James. I've got if I move James to Robertson, it gives me exact money for Martial to Wilson in 2021. Hopefully those two don't go up or down in price that makes it not possible, because I'm with you. I'd rather keep Martial, skip Mitro for the 19 because he is going to get a yellow card, and then Wilson thereafter in 20 is more interesting for me, assuming he's fit and well again. Should we cover off some of these games? Let's rattle through them and see if we can get some time to get into some Twitter questions. I did have a cheeky look at the Twitter questions, James, and there's some good ones in there. So
good. I did ask some good ones. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, no, Christmas and all that kind of stuff as well. So
is it Die-Hard questions?
No, there are not.
You'll be pleased to know, Suj, that I watched Die Hard 2 last night.
Okay.
And I watched Die Hard 1 the night before as well.
Oh, yeah. It's spreading the Christmas cheer. What was not Christmas cheer on Boxing Day was Brentford 2, Spurs 2 for you, sitting in the front row at the stadium there.
Wasn't sitting, was I?
Standing. Same thing. Yeah, difficult start for Spurs, but you did come back and get a point from it. Look, Brentford is never an easy game because they are strong, physical, in your face, and play with a good press and aggression. So if you offered me a draw away at Brentford, you kind of take it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the game? I didn't watch it fully.
Well, first thing, by the way, the lowest sun I think I've ever known. Like I took a cap. Anyone who knows me, full preparation, mate. Could the sun be in my eyes during this game? Yep. Wore a cap. Still used this. Honestly, I was wearing a cap the whole game and still had my hand out in front of me like that.
Oh wow!
To try and protect from the sun, beaming all game, which actually made the parts of the game quite difficult for certain players. Brentford would have been deserving winners. They were the better side by the first hour by a distance. And yet, the longer it went on, you felt if the game had continued till next team scored, my team would have been the more likely. We discussed it on our Patreon pod yesterday about Tottenham on the slow starts and not really being able to put our finger on it, and why I suspect a lot of it has to do with the lack of pace across the back three. When they're losing, they take more of a chance, but they don't want to take more of a chance when it's at 0-0, for example, and they get done over. And Tottenham need to be more aggressive in their off the ball thinking, not necessarily for the games in the double like Arsenal and Man City, but yeah, play more on the front foot against Villa. But I'm not sure that he will, because you've got in Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins, two very willing in behind runners, two players. Certainly Watkins is a very good runner into the channels and stuff. Bailey's obviously a good direct runner. So yeah, not all's well. Decent for Brentford. It feels like a very long time ago that they beat Manchester City, and you think, oh, how bad a result is it? They just went to the Etihad and won, and deservedly so. They played a back three / back five, which they commonly do against big six opponents. They will probably go back to a back four against you on Friday, Suj, but I wonder if they might stick. I wonder if they might stick. Toney's obviously been bought quite a bit. He's gone up in price, and he was the most bought forward, I think, I want to say, going into game week 17, which people were very confused about with this potential ban hanging over him. The really important thing to factor is he's okay for the next two. Beyond that, we don't know. So he's got till January the 4th to appeal. Obviously, he plays Liverpool on Monday, which is the 2nd. So for the next 2 weeks, he's fine. Beyond that, you might have been considering moving him to a Wilson or something. Anyway, that said, you look at their 3 games, because I'd looked at this prior to knowing when he had the appeal date. His fixtures after Fulham's double, this might be one for Mitrovic owners to think about. If for some reason Toney gets an appeal process and it gets put back or something, Bournemouth at home, Leeds away, Southampton at home, game weeks 20 to 22.
Arsenal
really
away after,
nice.
fine, but then Palace at home. So it's 4 out of the next 5.
Yeah, but then, so the point is, if Toney was okay, you move off of Mitrovic from the double to Toney. You've got Bournemouth, Leeds, Southampton. Then, okay, yeah, Toney walks into Arsenal, but then Mitrovic walks back into Nottingham Forest at home.
Right.
So you just chain it back. And if you're quite happy with the kind of template team you've got, and you are sitting there with Mitrovic or intend to buy Mitrovic this week or next, it's the sort of thing to consider if Toney gets off. My personal opinion is he's in for a very, very lengthy ban. On Tottenham, I thought Sonny was livelier. I have a sneaky feeling he might finally get a goal at the weekend, but that's not to tip him up as an FPL asset. Kulusevski, if you've gone in, is absolutely fine. Japhet Tanganga played right-sided centre-back. He's only 3.9. That's not going to stick. That's not to say he won't play against Villa, but obviously when Romero's back, Romero will take his place in the team. I expect Romero to be back by game week 20 at worst. I didn't understand that he picked Tanganga over Sanchez, personally. The big fingers crossed for Tottenham this week is that Bentancur, who was suspended and injured for Brentford, will hopefully be back. That's even more important than Romero, back for the Villa game on Sunday. And I would certainly expect Hugo Lloris to come back in goal as well. We've got to stop conceding first. Ridiculous. To be honest, we're not playing great, and you kind of want to batter them, but at the same time, the resilience is incredible that they keep managing to find their way back into games. Just want them to start properly. I just want them to have a routine 2-0 up at half time and win a game 2-0 and just quiet. Like, stop doing it to us.
When's your game against Villa? Saturday?
It's Sunday, 2:00.
Sunday. Away or home?
Home.
Okay. Let's see what happens with that. I think we'll get more of an idea on what we might think about Spurs for the doubles after that fixture and when you get back to a full strength team with everybody back from the World Cup.
Just wouldn't be fun. Like, if you want Tottenham players, like if you want Kane or you want Perisic or you want Doherty, like fine, great. But just my take is I wouldn't get those players because of the double.
Yeah.
I'd get them because you want them. The two best teams in the league in the double. Honestly, if you have Perisic, say you go Perisic, what do you honestly expect from Perisic in that double?
I don't think you'll keep any clean sheets, so I'm reliant on attacking returns. Like, you won't keep a clean sheet against Arsenal, you won't keep a clean sheet against City. It's very unlikely.
I realise in those two fixtures last year, we scored 6 goals. There's every chance there'll be no goals in those 2 games this year.
It's completely different now. Arsenal are a different beast, and Man City have Haaland. Which just
that might be the problem with the historical Tottenham Man City results. he's gonna kill us.
Oh, last night. Oh man. Anyway, we'll get to that. Palace 0, Fulham 3. I thought Fulham were going to win this and comfortably, and they did in the end. But
you did predict a Fulham win, in fairness.
Yeah, I didn't predict Palace to get 2 people sent off though, which obviously did heavily influence it. When you got 11 against 9, that can have quite an impact. But Mitrovic did return, and Fulham, I think, no one thinks Fulham are going down now this season. They're here to stay. I think they're playing well enough, and they've got a goal scorer in Mitrovic, which makes such a big difference. I'm interested in actually how many goals Fulham have scored this season now. Let's have a look here. Fulham.
Oh, it'd be like
27 goals. 27 goals.
How's that compare?
Well, you've got 43, 36, 32, 33, about 5th or 6th, mate.
Yeah.
5th or 6th, which is not bad at all. I mean, considering West Ham, 13 goals, Everton, 10 goals. They've scored more goals than the 2 of us combined. So if you've got a goal scorer and you can score goals, you give yourself a chance in any game. They're top half for a reason. So, credit to Fulham for going there and getting result, albeit against 9 men.
Mitrovic in game week 19, I think, is the only double game week player from Fulham or Chelsea I would captain over Haaland. It's the only one. I wouldn't be captain a Havertz or a Mount over Haaland. It would be, honestly, it would be Mitrovic with that risk of the potential 5th yellow, which would be terrible. But his consistency is great. He's obviously returned really well for owners in this one. He's 6.9. So look, he is obviously gettable for me. Should I want to go down that route? It's probably not going to be this week. I don't know if I'm going to go there, Suj. If I decide I want to captain over Haaland, then I would probably get him in for Martial, but I'm not sure I'm going to have the cojones to do that. It's worth saying, before Mitchell's red card, which for me, unfortunately, I don't think he meant it, but it is a red card for me. That's how he ends up coming down on the play. He's one of them. I'd ask myself, if it wasn't given as a red card, would VAR get involved? And actually, I think that's one where maybe they would. So I think that's right. I think Tompkins on the 2nd yellow, he just doesn't need to put his arm out, and Mitrovic takes advantage of it and cons him a little bit. But it's worth saying that prior to Mitchell's red card, Fulham were dominating anyway. They were a better side. Jordan Ayew had an effort that hit the bar for Palace, but Fulham had been the better side and in control and fully deserved to win. And Patrick Vieira was not making excuses after the game. Basically said that their commitment and their mentality wasn't right throughout the game. That's despite having 2 players sent off in terms of was the commitment there. So, yeah, he was not happy at all. And I almost feel like they're underperforming now a bit, Palace. I've just lost 3-0 under Fulham. I lost at Forest in game week 16. They got battered at Everton a few weeks ago. Had some really sloppy results, Palace. And after Bournemouth this weekend, I tell you what, they've got a bloody tough run that goes all the way up to April. So if you are still sitting there with Wilfried Zaha at 7.5, and you're looking at what Rashford's done, or you're looking at what Almiron's done, or you're even looking at a Fulham player for a double, Pereira, Bobby De Cordova-Reid is not a bad shout at 5.5, because he looks like he's going to play further up the field now. He had been covering a lot of right back, but obviously played wide, basically in a front 3 at the weekend. Not the weekend, on Monday, sorry. So there's loads of ways you can come off Zaha, and I think this will be probably your last week.
Yeah,
I think.
agreed.
It's not that he can't return in some of these bigger games, and we looked at it with Mig when he came on COTC a few weeks ago, and basically whether it's tough fixtures or easy fixtures, seems to return the same, actually. So look, you could hold him through, but I think there's plenty better assets at the moment than Wilfred's are. You got the likes of Trossard's cheaper. I know he's had a price fall and stuff, but yeah, there's or you push up to the 8s. How much more is it to go from Zaha to Saka's or Foden's and stuff like that?
Find the money, because the gulf there is huge.
I think you probably give yourself Bournemouth away this weekend and then move it. I'm not convinced they'll get anything at Bournemouth though either. They will be helped by Mark Gay coming back into the team. Obviously missed the Fulham game with suspension. I just wonder as well, with Mitchell suspended and Chris Richards finally getting some minutes, if we might see a back three. Not necessarily this weekend, but as these fixtures get harder. It's something we've seen it a few times from Vieira this season, where he's gone back 3/back 5 in more difficult fixtures, and it served them okay. With that really long, prolonged, difficult run, I wonder if they move towards that after the Bournemouth game.
What did we learn about Everton and Wolves, James? These are two teams that
we learned that they're both crap.
They're so far off my radar in every which way from FPL and that kind of point of view at the moment. Other than maybe Patterson, just because he's so cheap, but even he managed to get himself booked. 6 yellow cards for Wolves, 22 fouls in the game. Are we taking anything from this that Lopetegui's told him to put the boot in a bit or play a bit more aggressively? Is there anything to learn about this team so far?
Patterson should have fouled out Nori about 80 yards from goal before the goal happened. Watched him run past him. They literally crossed over and bumped into each other, and he watched him go and then busted his gut, but he had 10 yards to make up and couldn't catch him up. The Wolves weren't great. I think even our Wolves listeners would admit to that. It did end as a very much a smash and grab. Even the sense that basically the goal came about because Everton were getting frustrated. I got home from Brentford at 4:30 and watched the end of this because all the other games were basically done in terms of interest. So stuck that on. The quality level was obviously pretty piss poor, but it only really looked like Everton were going to win it if they could force something from a ball into the box or something. And they end up getting impatient, playing the direct ball, and Wolves broke. And Traore goes away. His cross is pathetic. Mikalenko's busting a gut to get back. Ends up deflecting off him, going straight into Nori's path. But they managed to end up in a position they were 4v2 down. Because the crowd were getting impatient. They were getting impatient. And I think if Everton are losing the brilliant home record that they have, they're in huge trouble, because we noticed that they're not going to get many results away from home. You certainly wouldn't expect them to get anything at the Etihad on Saturday. You'd fancy if Pep decided to put out the youth team, they'd still beat Everton, wouldn't you?
Do you know what? Yesterday, I looked at City's bench, which only had 9 players, and I reckon their 9 would beat West Ham's first 11.
What do you mean only had 9 players? You only allowed 9 players.
No, exactly. But their 9 players, their 9-player bench, City's bench,
I see,
would beat West Ham's first team comfortably. Comfortably.
Right to Pep and see if you can set it up as a friendly, mate.
Do you know what? That would be a game, and I reckon they'd fucking stand a chance against your lot at the moment as well. With the likes of Cancelo and Walker. I'm
not arguing that, actually. Everton. So I mean, there's a few important things. One, Connor Cody missed the game. Another one, like with Mark Gay, he'd obviously be back for the weekend. He was ineligible. It's not a yellow card thing. Yogi Mina did cover, went off injured, inevitably, did score. Frank Lampard said he's hoped it's cramp. He's also said that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a chance of returning at the weekend as well. But yeah, you wouldn't fancy them. And looking at games afterwards, Brighton, I mean, you just would, even at Goodison, you wouldn't fancy him at the moment. Then there's a huge game at Southampton. Then after that, West Ham away, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away. They could change manager, I think, in the next week if it goes badly for them. And it might. You would think right now they'll get beat by City and Brighton. And then I'm not sure how many defeats that is in a row. Is it 8 or so? And actually looking at his points now, his points per game it's getting to like worse than what Benitez was and stuff. So the football might be a little bit better, but yeah, are they in a better position to stay up now than they were this time last year? I don't think so. And they're in a mess. And it's again for Everton, as it always seems to be recently. What can they do in the transfer market that's going to be of use to them? They have to buy a centre forward because Neil Maupay just wasn't the answer.
Mm.
So they've got to address that, because they can't rely on Dominic Calvert-Lewin staying fit for the next 4 months. And if they don't address it, I think there's every chance they'll go down. I think Wolves with Lopetegui in the door actually are probably the more likely of the two to stay up. And it's a good result. I think Wolves fans will happily park the performance for this one. The fact they scored 2 goals, won the game, they'll be absolutely delighted. They've also got tough games to come. You've got United, City, Liverpool, 3 of the next 5, for example, and a local derby trip to Villa as well. On Bueno, obviously went off before the hour, and obviously his replacement scored, Ryan Aït-Nouri, but it did change systems. So start with a back 4 and move to a back 3 later in the game. And I think it's probably worth saying, I'm not sure Lopetegui fancies Aït-Nouri as a left back in a 4, for example. Aït-Nouri actually scored against Gillingham in the Cup last week and came on and played ahead of Bueno as basically a left-sided midfielder. So you might have an OOP prospect there with Ryan Aït-Nouri. And the one thing I do always feel about Wolves is I feel like people like Jose Sarr are still reasonable assets, in the sense that I think during the course of the season they will find clean sheets and stuff. The concern for them is, will they find enough goals? But yeah, it's a good start for Lopetegui, obviously.
Just on Everton as well, I might use it as an opportunity to give our Patreon a plug. If anybody is interested in joining our Patreon in January, you get a bump up in tier. So if you want access to the entire back catalogue of content, you only got to join at basic tier now, which is £3 plus whatever fees Patreon charge. And you can listen back to Tottenham from yesterday for a more in-depth review of the Tottenham game and the West Ham game. Their financial situation now is coming out in the wash a little bit. They're trying to claim Everton 170 million of their losses in the last 3 years were because of COVID. And most clubs are like 50, 60 million. They're trying to say that the transfer market affected them adversely to that tune. Like, who the fuck were they going to sell for that much money in their squad that's that good? They got fucking 60 million for Richarlison anyway. So if they are to go down, that's financial Armageddon there.
Well, yeah, we've spoken about this before.
And it will be a Money in Football on our Patreon, which we do quite regularly. We need to look into it.
Is the stadium's going up quite quickly. And that will obviously make a big difference to them once they get in there. But they don't want to be moving into that stadium as a championship team. The next 2 years about Everton are just about staying up. I reflect on discussing with you about them even at the start of the year. And we spoke about this, and we were very clear that Everton were in for pain, and not just a year of pain, but probably 5 years or so of absolute pain because of financial restrictions that are going to be in place because they have overspent. And that, in terms of the claiming of the COVID money, when you compare it to other clubs of similar size stature in terms of revenue, let's take a Villa as an example, Everton are putting down way bigger losses.
Massive, 3 times the amount.
It's very questionable, and yes, it may get looked at. I don't think anything will happen to them.
No. I think what they're trying to say is that points deductions will be like what happens on the pitch is on the pitch, and what happens in the boardroom is in the boardroom. But we'll be following up on it. But yeah,
I think a transfer embargo or something is probably more likely in the summer or something. I mean, the only problem is Everton need about 15 new players, so
yeah, that's true.
A particular problem.
Let's move on to Leicester 0, Newcastle 3. Comfortable away win for Newcastle. It seems like they've picked up where they left off. This is the game that I decided after 3 o'clock that I wanted to watch because I had involvement in terms of Trippier and Almiron. And on paper, it looks like a comfortable win. And to be honest, it was comfortable. I think the scoreline kind of flatters Newcastle a little bit. I think the XG was like 1.9 versus a half for Leicester, but that includes a penalty, right? So which has an XG of 1. But then when you score early in a game, like Newcastle did, 2 goals early in a game, first 20-something minutes, you can sit back off and let Leicester have the ball and then hit them on the counter as and when you want. And with Joel Linton as a runner from midfield and Almiron as runners from midfield and Guimaraes putting the ball through, they still posed a threat. And Leicester did try to create, but just the quality of their attacking output was just a bit poor. It got better in the second half, mate. When Jamie Vardy came on, you could tell like suddenly he had a little bit more of an impetus than Daka. Like Vardy's very direct, and he wants to get in and about the centre backs and be very direct towards goal and goal focused. He definitely made a big difference for Leicester. I think if you're a fan watching the game, you go away thinking, you know what, we probably deserve to lose. 3-0 is probably a bit harsh, but Newcastle are decent now. Let's just live to fight another day. But Newcastle look good. I think Almiron took his goal really well. He's at his price in FPL, he's a gift. And I think even Trippier at his price, there's just two good options there.
Do you know who the second highest scoring defender is in FPL?
Second highest scoring. Is it Cher?
No.
Okay.
It's William Saliba.
Okay.
Do you know how many points more Kieran Trippier's got?
No.
32.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've got it on screen in front of me. 108 versus 76.
And obviously Almiron's just passed 100 points now as well.
Yeah, they're both really good options. Like, I'm glad they're just sitting there. They'll tick along. If I need to bench Almiron, I'm not going to be too worried about it. But I think all of these guys from Newcastle, we talked about Botman already as your Reece James replacement, 4.4 million gift, I think is great value.
Yeah, I mean, one reason perhaps not to go Botman is if I want to get Wilson and Almiron.
Yeah. It's always a challenge when you've got three assets you want.
And I think we probably should start, and that's not to say that we haven't been doing that anyway, but we have to treat Newcastle here as very serious and a very good side, and start recognising that the majority of players within their team offer extremely good value at the moment. For example, we never speak about Joe Willock, 4.9 million. Why would we with Almiron's form, right? But he in himself, he's not a bad asset at the moment, for example.
No, I think there's always that shadow of when St. Maximin going to come back into the team, what's actually going to happen to
I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
What happens when Isak's fit? What will happen to Willock then?
I wouldn't even be surprised if they cash in on him. Not necessarily in January, but I think probably in the summer. The thing is, as good as he is, St. Maximin, they're better without him. They're better without him because of the work that the other boys are doing in that team at the moment. So, I mean, Joel Linton's actually playing in a higher position now than he had been previously throughout most of the year. That's partly because of Willock's form. It's also the amount of work that Joel Linton gets through. I mean, he's a workhorse, isn't he? He really puts it in. And Almiron, never criticised him, even when he was awful. His work rate is phenomenal. We always spoke with Almiron and went, he's a really likable player. He's got so much energy and stuff. He just never score. He's obviously taken the piss out of us this year, and he's another beautiful goal he's got on the weekend. But to fit St. Maximin back into that team now gives it an imbalance. So the only way he'd get in that team, I think, is he goes back through the middle. And when Wilson's back fit and Isak's back fit, you have to look at them at the weekends. You could look at Leicester and go, oh, no Maddison, which is obviously a huge blow. Like he's very talismanic for them. But it's Newcastle again with no Wilson, no Isak. Good. Eddie Howe has done an absolutely incredible job. And there's a lot of people obviously don't want Newcastle to do well, don't want Man City to do well, and didn't want Chelsea to do well and stuff. And I'm not in disagreement with any of that. And I think as a competitive rival, it's like, fuck shit, they're doing well quicker than we expected. But in terms of the manager, what he's achieved in 12 months is embarrassing for people who have managed clubs like Everton and spent shitloads over the last 10 years and stuff. That's reality. And it's not that Eddie Howe hasn't spent, but he's got a team that's, third in the league, and he's now favourites with the bookies for a top 4 finish. And he's got people like Longstaff playing every week.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they're holding midfielder in terms of Longstaff.
And Dan Burn, who was beginning to look surplus to requirements at Brighton, looks completely reinvigorated and stuff. They've spent heavily on a few players, but they've also bought well. You know, Kieran Trippier was like 15 million or so. Nick Pope was like 10 million or so. They bought sensibly as well as
really
spending
good.
big on a few people like Botman, Isak, etc. They're doing absolutely brilliant, Newcastle. And if this continues, they will finish top 4.
Yeah, agreed. Southampton, Brighton. Do you want to touch on that game? Brighton, obviously, 3 goals, and everybody that gambled on Trossard is still waiting for their points, mate.
Well, you said you were going to buy him. I think it put a few people off, I think.
And the ones that I put off, good. I've done you a favour. But when you see the lineup and he's playing through the middle, I thought, okay, there might be points in there. I still think he's a decent buy. I just think, I don't know.
Yeah, he played through the middle, and I'm not certain he'll stay through the middle against Arsenal at the weekend. There's a reason for that. There's something from this game has massively annoyed me, Suj.
Tell me.
85th minute yellow card for Moises Caicedo means a suspension against Arsenal on Saturday. And obviously, we assume Alexis McAllister's not going to be back. So Pascal Gross did play really well in a position against Southampton, but it's very different doing it against Southampton to against Arsenal. And I think that's really good news for Arsenal going into that game at the weekend. Interestingly, did you see the tweet that Brighton sent the XG philosophy? Because Southampton had a higher XG, despite Brighton having so much of the ball. And obviously partly of that was Ward-Prowse's penalty and stuff.
No, I didn't. They take the penalty out. It looks, I've got the stats here. It was higher, 1.91 versus 0.64.
They replied to him and said, "Oh, how times change." Brighton, really good. Their social media accounts, good for a bit of banter now and again. Actually, they don't mind insulting themselves. Do you remember that one with Sanchez and someone else, and they were taking the piss out of themselves about the fact they couldn't score and their XG was high and stuff. It was Solly March who scored a fantastic goal. What a goal! First goal of the season. 28 shots he's had. It was the most shots by any player in the league and yet to score. And what a goal it was to score. I'm concerned for them for the weekend against Arsenal with Caicedo missing on top of McAllister. I think Duncan Estupiñán, 4.7 and 4.5 respectively, are also not off radar for me as potential replacements for Reece James. And I know a lot of
Mitoma?
Well, Mitoma's a midfielder, mate.
Oh, so... is he listed as a midfielder at 4.9, is he?
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's about 8 very good 5 million sub midfielders, and Almiron's only 0.9 more or something.
Yeah. I don't know why I had him down as a defender.
I haven't ruled them out. I think my problem is whatever I get in, I'm probably going to want to play this way. I don't have to, but I could go for a Estupiñán or Dunk this week and bench it and play Pereira against Southampton. It's perfectly reasonable, of course. I know a lot of people are looking at them because people think that this double is going to come round from in game week 21. I'll repeat what I said on Friday afternoon, that I'm not convinced that there'll be any extra fixtures in January, and I wouldn't make your decision to buy a Brighton player based on that. That would be my take. But I think otherwise, Duncan Estupiñán for longer term purchases are obviously completely reasonable. For Saints, that was a disastrous result. Those who listen to me regularly know I've not been high on Gavin Bazzuno, and he's really fucked up on the first goal here. And who knows if he doesn't let Adam Lallana's header go through his fingers, then maybe we got a different football match. Sam Fabidozi, 4.7. Here you go. He's another one to add at under 5 million. Obviously won the penalty and looked quite lively. It might be worth keeping an eye on because they do have great fixtures. Otherwise, did that fill you with joy to go, I'm going to go in for Che Adams now? No, it didn't. I think Southampton's good run probably starts after this week when it's Forest, Everton, Villa, Brentford, Wolves. Fulham away this weekend is still a very tough fixture for them. And right now, you wouldn't fancy them to get anything.
No.
They are conceding way too many goals. It's Nathan Jones' first home game in charge. He's not been blessed with a good start, Liverpool and Brighton. Let's see how he gets on over these few. But yeah, that at the weekend is not going to entice anyone to want to buy their assets.
And the psychological issue of now they're bottom of the table, mate, with 4 defeats in a row.
They dropped to bottom, yeah?
They're bottom, mate. 12 points. Forest and Wolves are bottom with 13.
Played a back 4 as well, which was surprising because they played back 3 against Lincoln in the Cup. So I don't know what the thinking was in prep for that. I know that maybe he wanted to look at the 2 different systems and had decided he had to play a 4 against Brighton. So that's at the 3 against Lincoln in the Cup. Matt and Sean, by the way, are coming on COTC ahead of their game week 20 meeting, Everton Southampton.
Oh, mate.
I know, yeah. I do line them up, don't I? Which is maybe not so much one for the FPL assets, but certainly going to be some big conversations had on that podcast. That'll be, I think it's going to be not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after.
Okay. Aston Villa won at Liverpool 3. On paper, comfortable 3-1 for Liverpool. And they were good, Liverpool. I think they moved the ball quickly. They created chances. They could have scored more. Darwin should have put the ball in the back of the net. Salah had the one-on-one. But watching the game, also, when Villa did break, Ollie Watkins was a real handful on Bailey. And they got the ball into the final third quickly and did create a few problems for Liverpool. But Liverpool just a better team, right? Net. And once they were ahead, they could just control it. Like, I don't even know what Van Dijk's passes were, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was well into the 57. He didn't get a passing tier, James. Wow.
Mate, this is what I told you. The second half, we spoke about this on the Sky pod yesterday. The second half reminded me very much of Liverpool's second half at Tottenham, where they'd obviously got themselves in a strong position with 2-0 up and said, okay, what you got? And I wouldn't say Liverpool hung on for dear life against Tottenham, and I wouldn't say they hung on for dear life against Villa on Monday either. But to say that they sat behind the ball and restricted those two teams from creating chances, no, they didn't. They still look vulnerable. I love this game, by the way. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was a good game, definitely.
Yeah, really fast paced. The first half had some chaotic periods where it felt like a basketball match at times, which is always going to benefit Liverpool a little bit more. But not they're not like 100% defensively. It's not right. It's just not right. And I think part of that is obviously what's going on. They're easy to play through in midfield. The amount of times it felt like Buendia was picking up the ball in pockets and stuff. And it's a bit fucking easy this against Liverpool. Like they're not 100% right. And if you go for a Robertson, you have to be I think aware that I look at them games ahead and go, Leicester at home. I actually probably do fancy from clean sheet tomorrow, but Brentford away, Brighton away, and then Chelsea at home. I wouldn't be so convinced that there's cleans there and stuff. But with Robertson, you're as much going for the attacking returns and stuff, and I get that. And in terms of an outlet, yeah, very much for me, if you were picking, even if you had the value, I'd go for him over Trent at the moment.
Agreed. Yeah.
Trent's pass for Robertson is breathtaking, but Trent is playing positionally with the handbrake on a little bit, which I think is part in protection for himself. But it's also allowing Andy Robertson to absolutely bomb on. And whoever plays on the left is commonly coming off the flanks. Even when we had Nunez before the break playing on the left, it's kind of moving in central, allowing Robertson to push on. So Robertson's definitely, I think, the one at the moment. Of course, Trent, free kicks, long ball over the top. There's so many avenues. It's still there for him. But I would go Robertson over Trent at the moment. Salah and Nunez, pace over the top, blistering. And I was surprised that Villa allowed the game to be as it was. And I don't know if they were trying to punch with Liverpool and when, well, if we get in front here, we don't fancy we can defend well enough against you. But then they were never in front, so the game just stayed chaotic for a lot of it. They absolutely they're obviously a brilliant football team, Liverpool, and I'm not calling them long ball merchants at all. But they will just thump it over the top for particularly Nunez. They'll just do it. And he's fucking chaos, Suj. He's chaos. A
lot of people are Marmite on him now, like in that he's missed so many big chances. But there's going to be any given game where he's going to pick you up 15, 18 points. I'm loath to sell him at the moment.
A lot of people are comparing him to, say, Werner, right? So Werner came with a big reputation, probably even more so than Nunez, actually, in terms of arriving in the league, and similar traits in terms of pacing behind and stuff. But Werner would miss chances and have bad games for Chelsea, and you almost felt apologetic for him in the sense you'd be like, I'm not sure he's up to this level. Actually, maybe it's a bit much for him. He'd look a bit timid at times. Nunez don't. Nunez looks like he's going to fucking power past everybody. But when he gets in position, you don't think he's going to score. Now, if you've gone for him, you've got him, haven't you, Suj?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't consider selling him for a second. I'd be more likely to buy him than sell him. He's chaos. He's going to frustrate. But Liverpool have got, I would say, over the next 6, good fixtures. And I think he remains interesting. And I know for someone like me who didn't go with him, it's not oh, look at me. Nunez didn't return. It's oh, look at me. I was quite lucky there. Because on a different day, he gets 3 or 4, mate. And on one day, that'll happen.
Yeah. I'm waiting for it.
It'll probably be like away to Newcastle in game week 24 when everyone sold him and everyone least expects it, right? But yeah, he's chaos. His movement over the top is really good. One thing I did notice about him more, because I was watching him quite closely Monday, he runs too early sometimes. He doesn't need to because he's quick enough. And I think he has intelligence. He's lacking a little bit of intelligence when it comes to keeping himself onside on occasion. And against certain teams, that will catch him out and will also be frustrating for owners. But with some of these fixtures coming up, I mean, yeah, I would fancy him to return against Leicester.
So
on Friday.
We also have now the news, though, James, that
Yes.
Cody Gakpo is coming through the door at Anfield. He's not going to be ready for this weekend, and maybe even not next week. Right? We don't know when and how he's going to get integrated into the team. So
my best guess would be that he won't be available at Brentford. I'm just using that on the basis that it's a Premier League Monday and it's a bank holiday Monday. And I'm guessing, yeah, New Year's Day's a Sunday, and then Monday, this is what happened to Neil Maupay, wasn't it? It was like, oh, yeah, we don't work on bank holidays, can't register him. So I don't think he'll play at Brentford. Following that, yeah, we can expect him to be involved. But then, you know, Brighton away, Chelsea home, some challenging fixtures where he might get eased in. I think there's multiple different ways that Liverpool can use him. I think if you're a Nunez owner at the moment, that's probably part of the reference here, I wouldn't let the signing of Cody Gakpo concern you.
Yeah, not at the moment.
I think once you get towards the end of January, we might need to be having more of a conversation about it. I think Gakpo can play multiple roles. I also think like he could play as a 9. I think it makes me think that maybe Liverpool might, towards the end of this season, move more towards a 4-2-3-1, which might partly help some of the midfield problems in the sense that if it's just, say, Thiago and Fabinho, to just play a lot deeper. That might help. Price, I guess after his positive World Cup, 8.5, something like that.
I think 8 or 8.5. I don't think he'll come in more than Nunez, but I don't think he'll be cheaper than 8. So 8 or 8.5 is what I would see him coming in at.
I think he's more likely.
I think they'll want to make him tempting.
To what? Well, yeah, maybe, but then you look further down the line. I mean, I say 8.5. Should he come in at more than Diaz, for example, considering what Diaz showed us at the end of last season?
Yeah, perhaps not.
So maybe it'll be a little bit cheaper. By the way, obviously, Andy Robertson now most assists in Premier League history for a defender, overtaking Leighton Baines' record. You know how many games fewer than Leighton Baines he's played in the Premier League?
Half of Baines was a Premier League player for forever, so I'm going to say like a half or something stupid like that.
189 fewer games.
So he's going to smash that. He's going to smash that.
Everton fans are never listening to this again, are they?
Let's move it on to Arsenal West Ham. This is probably one of the quickest games we can wrap up. Like if it was ever a way of predicting, West Ham are not in good form. I know people are talking about good fixtures coming up. West Ham poor on the night, didn't create anything other than the penalty. I've had a few tweets, James, talking about Aaron Cresswell as a potential Reece James replacement. Please don't go there, is my advice to you right now. Don't go near any West Ham players at the moment. Throw the fixtures in my face as much as you want. The advice from me is not going to be to go anywhere near them at the moment until you see some form, because lack of goals is a real problem. But
yeah, I saw one of our patrons summed it up really nicely yesterday, because those next 4 fixtures, Brentford, Leeds, Wolves, Everton, good, even for potential defensive prospect. Not so much the first 2, but certainly the second 2, I think. But well summed up by it. I like West Ham's fixtures. I just don't like West Ham.
Yes, exactly that.
And that's where it's at. I think Ben Rama would be, if I had to buy a West Ham player right now, would be the one, but I wouldn't be buying him over Almiron.
It's the same price as Almiron, mate. Why would you do that?
I wouldn't be doing it. So,
Arsenal, on the other hand, though, it's the first 90 minutes solid of Arsenal I've watched all season. I feel like I must have watched more, but my God, they're a good team. And Ketcher, for those that decided to gamble, he was lively, he was good, he was aggressive. Saka, Martinelli was quieter, but he still pops up with the goal. Odegaard, Like he is
He was
some
ridiculous.
player, like just comfortable on the ball, pulling the strings left, right. Yeah, really, really good. And
Remarkably,
defensively,
the only
Saliba and
bad thing
Gabriel solid.
he did in the game was the
The
shot that led
shot,
to
which led to
Saka's
an
goal.
assist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I look at him. I think he's 6.4 million, James. He's already got 10 attacking returns so far this season as Odegaard.
Yeah. So the double point hauls, who have they been against, Suj?
6 and 4. So Wolves and West Ham, Nottingham Forest, Fulham and Bournemouth. Shit teams, understandable. But he's picked up 14 bonus points.
I've really
season,
lined
James.
that up for you to say.
When he scores, he's always picking up BPS. 14 bonus points in 17 games is not a bad return. It's almost won a game, mate.
No.
Clean sheets, picking up a little extra.
The point being is, and he is in fantastic form. And that form that he got 2 goals against Wolves in game week 16. So he's got 4 attacking returns in his last 2. And was Forest before that as well? And it was Chelsea away, wasn't it? Forest was one more before that. But where his returns are coming, these fixtures coming up suggest to me that they're probably more Martinelli or Saka fixtures. That's all I would say on that. Brighton, Newcastle, Tottenham United. Because I just think Odegaard's going to have to do a little bit more midfield work in those 4 fixtures. That's literally as it. It's not to put anybody off. It's just there is a trend that playing against teams that are going to sit really deep, and Arsenal are heavily fancied to beat. That's where the hauls are at the moment. And Arsenal don't have a fixture like that till they go to Everton in game week 22 now. So would I at this moment pick, if I was buying new, pick Odegaard over Martinelli? No. I still wouldn't. I'd still stay with Martinelli.
There's 0.4 difference in it though, James.
Yeah.
So for budget wise.
But I think like Martinelli, sometimes for Martinelli, games like this can be more difficult for him because obviously spacing behind is a part of his game and it's not there. It might be more in some of these upcoming fixtures. Brighton ain't going to not give space behind and stuff. It will. And it might be that it's Odegaard finding Martinelli, for example, by the way. Newcastle will probably sit a bit deeper. Tottenham definitely will in 20. Manchester United can go either way in terms of how they set up at the Emirates in 21. Obviously, look, it's a tough run of fixtures for Arsenal, but I wouldn't put anybody off as in saying don't go for their assets. It's 4 tough fixtures. If you want it, have it. I just probably would look at it and think you should have just gone in when you started before the West Ham.
Yeah,
exactly that. I've got White and Martinelli, and I think that'll do
for now.
That'll do me for now, and the plan would be to add a third one probably in game week 22 / game week 23.
The double is 22.
It's 23. Brentford
23.
at home,
so there you go.
And City at home.
Yeah,
and the fixtures either side: Everton away, Villa away, Leicester away. Admittedly, they're all away, but I mean, you've almost fancied them against anybody. If they played City,
home games.
If they played City tomorrow, they beat City.
The 2 home games, I think the stat came out in the commentary, mate. They haven't lost at home, or they've won every game at home since April, something stupid like that. League game?
Yeah, Brighton. I think
mad.
In
That's a good
April,
run, mate. At home.
You know what's also madder about that run though? There's only 1 home clean sheet in that run.
Oh wow.
Yeah, against Nottingham Forest, 5-0. Other than that, they've conceded every home game since they beat Leicester in March in the Premier League anyway.
They won them all.
Which is, I spoke to Adam Pritchard about this on COT saying we couldn't really find a reason for why it happened. I mean, take the goal against yourselves. Gabriel pushes in a bit higher and Antonio and Bowen just exploit the space and Saliba gets kind of isolated. It is a penalty, I think. Definitely wasn't a penalty when it hit Cresswell on the head.
No.
I can understand why Michael Oliver actually gave it. I had a really good theory on it.
His arm was up.
Well, it was that, but I also had an interesting theory on it, was the sense that he was going to have to blow for half time. So he thought, well, I'll give the penalty, and if it really hasn't hit his hand, then fine.
Half time anyway.
Whereas if he blew for half time and then got, oh yeah, shit, mate, that's a penalty.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that as a theory, which is interesting. I'm not sure referees should be influenced that way, but yeah, it felt like he was looking straight at it and he should call it correctly. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people are like, why is he getting sent over to monitor? He has to. It's all tick box exercise bullshit. West Ham have huge games coming up. We spoke about it a lot on our Patreon pod yesterday. Those 4 games you need to do well in, or there may well be a change of manager. Arsenal's 4 games may also define what happens to their season. If they can pick up 2 points per game over the next 4 and stay ahead, then I do genuinely think that there's a high probability they'll go on and win this league. They're playing too well. Got to keep players fit. That's, Nketiah for Jesus is fine. It'll be okay. But if you start pulling out Odegaards and Salibas and stuff, they do need to keep the core of the team fit.
Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 0. Comfortable home win for Chelsea 2-0. Anything to add? I didn't watch this one.
Yeah, I actually thought Bournemouth started all right. They had some lively moments early on, and I thought some of the criticism of them was a little bit over the top, actually. You could call it perhaps a little bit naive at times, that they were getting pulled out. It was easy to play through them, and that's something they might have to address. But they kind of went there. It felt to me like with a mentality that they were going to try and go for Chelsea quite early on. Obviously, once you go behind, you're in trouble. Chelsea, that said, is the best I've seen of them for a long time. To be honest, probably going back to the game week 2 performance against Tottenham. Very good in the first half. I don't think there's much point speaking about them tactically. I did cover it near the start in terms of Reece James and pushing up and Pulisic in and Cucurella tucking in and Zachariah's positioning. He could change the team again quite a lot against Forest. He could change to a back 3. He could stay with a back 4. I would expect Havertz probably to stay in the team. Those who've gambled will be pretty pleased. I think if you do want to go extra Chelsea attacking for whatever reason, I think it's probably Havertz or Mount. But again, like I'm not sure I'd be picking I wouldn't pick Havertz right now. Even with the double, I wouldn't pick him over Mitrovic.
Yeah.
At cheaper. If you already got Mitrovic, are you thinking of adding Havertz? Maybe. Would I pick Mount over Saka's? Foden's if I didn't have Kulusevski's? Maybe if you couldn't afford them. Otherwise, not convinced. I think whatever you wanted with Chelsea, you wanted to start with. Now, the difference, obviously, with Reece James' injury is you may want to replace that for another Chelsea. But a lot of us have gone Kepa. And I'm also thinking, I'm quite happy with that. The double. Let me ask you this as a question, Suj. What's better? What's better for an FPL game week? Bournemouth at home or a double of Manchester City at home and Fulham away?
Yeah, this is what we talked about at the beginning. I'm not sure. You're not for United. Bournemouth at home, I think is a better
Chelsea's best fixture is just gone. And I mean that in terms of clustering the 2 fixtures together versus the one.
Right. Okay, I understand
what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's gone. I wouldn't rate Man City at home and Fulham away as better on an FDR than just Bournemouth at home. That's my point. And that's not to say people shouldn't go and invest. I just think in most cases it would start with it. The excuse now is obviously if you want to get a James replacement. I think as covered at the top, it would be Cucurella if I was to go for Chelsea. Bournemouth missed Marcus Tavernier. Quite clear. He was playing so well for them. And it doesn't sound promising in terms of when he'll be back. As Gary O'Neill's comments were a bit conflicting. It was like, hopefully soon, but we don't know. And that's a blow for them. Lloyd Kelly being back at centre-back is beneficial for him. He's missed a lot of the season. They did play a back 5. They have a difficult read from week to week whether they'll play a back 5 or a 4. But they do certainly seem to have set their stall out now that they are going to play a front 2 with Moore and Solanke. That said, we also expect them to invest in the transfer window in January. So you're not looking at investing in Bournemouth players now.
No. Manchester United 3, Nottingham Forest 0. A comfortable win for Manchester United as well. And they did well. I think there was hope that they would do well again at home against Nottingham Forest. A lot of gambled on Rashford or even Martial that we talked about. But when I watched the first kind of 15 minutes and Forest had really set in, they were going to put 10 men behind the ball type stuff. Well, this could be a long afternoon because with Rashford, it's the pace in behind, right? Anthony's got pace in behind. If there's no space and you've got to break them down, that could be a difficult game sometimes. But when they got the goal off the corner, then kind of your nerves settled a little bit and they could control it really well. I thought Casemiro was really good in midfield. I questioned their price tag on him at 30 and whether or not he was worth. He's really good.
He is absolutely outstanding.
Mm.
I thought it would. I spoke about this when he joined. Let's see how quickly he adjusts from La Liga football and having 65% of the ball every week and walking into a Manchester United team which has not been good and have not been a possession team for years, basically. And he has adjusted so well, better than I expected. In fairness, he's a top player and instrumental to probably what they achieve or don't achieve for the rest of this season. His fitness will be key. Talk about key players for team. You take him out of that team, what you're putting in there, but McTominay, Fred, he's not to the same level.
You've got a three in there now of like Bruno, Ericsson, and Casemiro. They're all comfortable on the ball. They're all really happy to receive it. Good passers. That's a good footballing three that you've got there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, just thinking Casemiro, it's probably finally replaced Michael Carrick.
Yeah,
it's probably that. Literally, that's how long it's been since they had a player. And I'm
decent
not
player,
overly comparing the two players.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know what you're trying to say.
That quality in that position. Not an FPL asset though, despite the assist for Fred's goal, which was brilliant.
Sky, perhaps we can talk about, but not FPL. You're right.
To be honest, even in Sky, I think you paid a little extra for Rashford with the potential form he's in. It's 10 goals in 21 in all competitions, scored in 5 successive home games as well. You've got a Bournemouth home fixture coming up, which looks very, very enticing. Might struggle for space a little bit more against Wolves on Saturday lunchtime. Obviously, Lopetegui's first home Premier League game as well. I mean, it'll be a little bit of a challenge actually for United on Saturday. In terms of investing in new, I think it's another one. It's like, oh, have you just seen Rashford and Martial do well? Oh shit, wanted to buy them. No, the best fixture's just gone. It was Forest at home. So I think probably
Bournemouth next game in 20s, not 19's not bad.
If you've not gone with any and you want to go for one, definitely Rashford over Martial for me at this moment. I thought Bruno Fernandes played really well, but it's just not worth the money at the moment. I cannot see why you would pay that money for Fernandes over Rashford. There'll be some who've gone with both and are going to stick it out for these 3 games, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine. I presume Bruno would be on the pens. I don't know. It could be Rashford. I don't know. But I think interestingly, like if you've gone, we didn't speak about this, but a number of listeners gone Wilson, for example, and he's still a doubt for the game at the weekend with an illness. And to be honest, Chris Wood took the penalty and scored for Newcastle. Are they going to rush him back in for Leeds when it's Arsenal away 3 days later? Eddie Howe spoke about getting his immune system back up. And wasn't it illness that kept him out in sort of game week 15, 16 as well?
Flu. Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
Well, do you know that when sometimes you go on holiday and you go to a hot country and you come back to shit cold England and then you get ill? It happens quite often where you've been used to like a week or 2 weeks, and he's been used to 4 weeks in the sun in Qatar. He's come back to cold, rainy England and he's got a cold. I'm not surprised. I don't think it's a ongoing, regular concern, this illness. It just happens to be bad luck.
As most of the listeners and viewers can probably tell, I'm not 100%. I ain't had no fucking sunshine for a while, mate. So I'm not having that as
get down the sunbeds.
I think point being though, like we probably should have covered this when we spoke about Newcastle. I don't think Wilson starts for Newcastle against Leeds at the weekend. I don't think they need to force it. And then it's Arsenal away next. And so you'd start looking at it again, well, he's more expensive than Mitrovic and Martial. Martial's got Wolves away, Bournemouth at home. Mitrovic's got Southampton at home and double. Move it. I think I can understand those who, and to be honest, a lot of Wilson owners will have Reece James, and so they suddenly think, oh, shit, it's a -4, and then it's debatable. But if you can do it for free, I'd definitely do it. The question I'd put to you, Suj, would you go Mitrovic or Martial?
Right now, if I was buying Mitrovic all day long,
exactly,
Martial was all right.
Exactly that.
He was all right, but also he didn't have a lot of space, and they did pack that kind of defensive area. Did Forest?
Reality, he should have scored. He scored. Hennessy should save it.
Yeah. It was
he's not a good goalkeeper, and Forest will benefit from having Dean Henderson back in goal against Chelsea at the weekend. Varane obviously kind of rushed back to play, which was unexpected. Luke Shaw played centre back and did absolutely fine, but wasn't overly tested. Jesse Lingard obviously got an injury for Forest as well, which is a potential problem because we think Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be out for a while as well, and it's kind of been an either or with one of them. I think it means Brennan Johnson can be looking at a lot more minutes coming up, and the new Brazilian boy they got in Scarva, isn't it? He might get rushed into the team. He obviously can't play against Chelsea on Sunday, I don't think. But he might go in the team quite quickly afterwards, I think.
Let's wrap up, James, with Leeds 1, Manchester City 3. I needed that Leeds goal, to be honest with you, just to kill out any man. After Cancelo didn't start, I wanted all the Man City clean sheets to be wiped out. But Leeds did okay on the counter, and they obviously always play with a high energy and a high press. But when you've got Erling Haaland, like, the guy could have easily scored 4 or 5 yesterday. The one-on-ones, couple of shots that didn't quite work out. Yeah, what a guy! It's just. There's no words anymore. Another 2 goals. Is it 20 goals now?
A few of the chances he completely fluffed. I'll give you the best Erling Haaland stat, because I feel like we should throw one up every week. He's now scored more goals than Derby County's 2007-08 team.
Okay, 20 goals, 17 games, but he's only played 16 of those 17 games. So, yeah. He's well on track for 40 goals.
It's not even New Year's Day. He scored more goals than Derby scored in a whole football season.
Oh, mate. So as it stands right now, he scored more goals this season than West Ham, Everton, Wolves, Forest, Southampton, Bournemouth, Villa, Palace, Chelsea. Fuck me. How many teams?
He scored more goals than Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea have scored 19 goals this season. 1,
that's
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams, James. He scored more goals than 9 Premier League teams have.
34 is the record, isn't it? If he stays fit, he'll beat it.
Oh, easy.
It's just not even a doubt about it.
Yeah,
I do think it would be great for fantasy if he got injured for a while. That said, Arsenal's performances mean that I'd want him to stay absolutely fit. And batter everyone bar the 2 games against Tottenham in January and February, respectively. Which means I can enjoy watching City now because I need them to win games to catch up with Arsenal. Shout out for Rico Lewis, who played right back, 3.9. Played like bloody Philip Lahm. Where do they keep producing these kids from? They trusted him to go and play basically in midfield with Rodri. How quickly he transitioned from right back to holding midfield player. Honestly, it was smooth as, well beyond his years. And he looks a short player, very composed, can definitely improve technically and stuff, but really good. His understanding of positioning was top level stuff, so good. And I think obviously for many of us, we saw the team, no Cancelo, Laporte, Walker, Bernardo Silva, Foden, and you think, oh, Leeds got a chance here. I think Leeds' big miss last night, we spoke about this on COTC, was Tyler Adams. Was a big
just
miss
on Rico Lewis, the moment I knew he was that Man City player was when he got his yellow card, that fucking tactical foul just outside the edge of the box. You're like, all right, and hands up in the air. What me, Gov? Yes, you fucking meant to take him out because there was danger. But yeah, he did play really well. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Adams' energy and pressing is hard to replace.
I think a lot of people who only went with, say, 2 City, perhaps just went with, say, Cancelo and Haaland, were probably looking for this game to give them some information of what to do for Everton. Unfortunately, you haven't got it. My take would probably be that the team that plays against Everton will probably be similar to the team that plays against Leeds. I think there's certain nuggets we can probably work out, like Cancelo is now probably ahead of Kyle Walker in terms of fitness, in the sense that he brought Cancelo on and didn't bring Kyle Walker on. Kyle Walker spent most of the game having a fight with a camera that was on top of the dugout, and appeared to know that he wasn't coming on, I thought, in the second half, because he went and sat down with a cup of tea by the looks of it at the start of the second half. Well, maybe that, but I don't know. Is that a footballer gig? Is it? If you're a sub, tea, coffee, is that all right? I suppose maybe it is. Mind you, Jamie Vardy will have Red Bull and Port, wouldn't he? So what's the worst that can happen? But he's probably not invest new in City unless you wanted to take 1 week punts on things like Mahrez and stuff. But I think what you've got, you keep, and what you haven't got, you probably wait for a little bit more information. Would probably be my take. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, I wouldn't be surprised if Cancelo doesn't start again. But I wouldn't consider selling him for a second, because I know I want him back.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And I imagine selling him when he does start. If Cancelo does start, I'd expect that to be a double pointer against Everton at the weekend. I'd expect an attacking return, and I'd expect a clean sheet. So there's no way I'd move that on. It's still murky in terms of the centre backs. What did we learn last night? To know that Laporte won't come back in for any one of the three centre backs that did start. We just don't know. So I don't think we got anything that we learnt from last night that's going to help us going forward. Phil Foden may start against Everton. He may not. Similar to Cancelo. Again, no. I think if you've got, I think you know. I think if you go for Phil Foden, you don't just drop at the first sign of, he didn't start. You knew it was a possibility that he may not play this game, and it's a possibility he may not play at the weekend. But I wouldn't want to sell him and then he's in the team, because he'll probably haul if he does start. Leeds will have Adams back, obviously, for the trip to Newcastle. I wouldn't expect him to get anything, but it will certainly help.
Right, James, that's the wrap up of the games. And we've been rabbiting on for an hour and a half. I do want to get into some of these questions on Twitter, though. Listeners, just so you know, obviously it's Thursday today. Tomorrow, what's happening tomorrow? Remind me. It's a big fat quiz of the year.
So
what
I've decided to do, because I'll be honest, we've already recorded it.
Yes.
With the brilliant mayor of FPL, Tom Campbell at ETC. I'm going to put it out after the football tomorrow night.
Okay.
So it'll premiere on YouTube at 10 o'clock.
10. Mm-hmm.
And I'll put the audio out like during the second half and stuff. So concentrate on your FPL with the deadline tomorrow. A little bit of fun with us, a Friday night quiz on 2022 hosted by Tom.
Are you doing a deadline stream tomorrow, James?
Yes, and it's another reason to hold it back as well. So yeah, deadline stream will be 5:15 on YouTube, 6:15 p.m. deadline. We're also going to get a pod out for you Sunday night. The target is midnight. I'm going to come back from Tottenham, watch Forest Chelsea. Me and Suj are going to get in front of the mics and do the review of obviously the Gameweek 18 games. Get that out for you as quick as possible. So target is midnight Sunday. Yeah, almost definitely be a midnight YouTube premiere on Sunday night, I think.
Yep, indeed. So we've got plenty of content over the next few days to keep you busy. Right, James, Christmas presents. You ready? Danny wants to know, what was your best Christmas present?
You didn't sell Patreon. You didn't sell
Patreon. I sold it earlier, but
sell it again,
head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. There's loads of good content on there for you to catch up on. And as of January, you're going to get a bump up in tier. So if you sign up at basic, you get the intermediate tier.
As of January, just for January.
Yeah. And intermediate, you get all of the advanced content. If you're advanced here, James is doing additional stuff for you as well. You get access to our Slack channel at intermediate tier. You also get Slack and a bunch of prize leagues and also additional podcasts. James does video content, tactical videos at the advanced tier. So yeah, if you want to try it out and see if it's worth it, and if you enjoy all the additional stuff that we do, as well as helps keep the lights on and keep the pod going, do come and join us. We'll be happy to have you.
I've got a runny nose. Make me feel better for all the effort we put in 2022 and support us on Patreon. Thanks, love you.
When you sign up, just tweet James that you've joined, and it will cheer him up.
Yeah,
today.
Let me know.
Right, James, what was your best Christmas present you received this year?
I mean, I didn't get anything. we don't bother with presents here. As what Harry got. Harry's delight at what he got. So he's very into Hot Wheels cars at the moment.
Oh, is he? So
we've got him this fold up truck. We can put loads of cars in, but also unfolds all the way and becomes like a long track.
Yes,
and he loves it. So
good.
I'm well happy with that.
Nice. My parents gave me 20 quid in an envelope. What for? What for? Yeah, 20 quid in an envelope for
all I got for Christmas was this fucking cold.
I got some really nice bath salt. My wife gave me bath salts predominantly because when I train jiu-jitsu, being an old man, most of my time is spent moaning about how much pain I'm in. So here's some bath salts. Now stop moaning and just have a bath.
Your wife get any nice books for Christmas?
Yeah. So she doesn't know who a Secret Santa is, but I had to get a recommendation right now.
Did you know?
Yeah, it's you, obviously.
Yeah.
So the 3 books she recommended, you got one of them. So I got the other two for her for Christmas, so she's got the full set.
Yeah,
So she's
I knew
very
all
happy.
that.
I'll go and tell her. Now I know who it might have been. Right, okay. Let's have a look here.
In your own time.
Tractor wants to know who the worst Reece James replacement is, because then at least he'll go with the second worst option. Who would you absolutely totally not buy? Trent.
No, I wouldn't say that. No. Yikes. It's tough. It's tough to pick out something and go, oh, that's abysmal. Don't do that. Something like Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer, because Tottenham have got a double. There you go. Eric Dyer is an abysmal choice.
FPL Ralph, if I gave you 20 quid to bet on Darwin's game week 18 points total, would you bet under or over 10 points? Game week 18.
I would bet on under.
Statistically.
But I do think that he will return.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Darwin related stuff. There's a lot of these questions now that we've actually answered as we usually do. But FPL Dub's going to end this show, James, with this question. If Darwin Nunez was a sandwich, which would he be? I'm going to go with any type of sandwich here.
Beef.
I was gonna say a Big Mac, or basically anything from the McDonald's menu. Well, go on the McDonald's website and they'll call them sandwich or burger. It's the same thing, right? Bread with something in the middle. And I'll tell you why. You know, if you go to McDonald's, like some people will be like, "Oh, you go to McDonald's?" Yes. Sometimes it's banging. Like everything's lined up. It's nice and neat, and the burger's good, and it's hot and not cold, and the cheese is warm as well. Sometimes you get it, and fucking the sauce is dripping off the side. The lettuce is all in the box. It's not stacked up, and it's cold, and it's just a fucking mess. That's Darwin Nunez. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Maybe shit.
Yes, indeed. And that's what I would class him as. But I'm still quite excited to see what he might do in my FPL team in the next couple of weeks.
I will have a bet that most people with Darwin Nunez will have a green arrow in game week 18.
Wow. Let's see if that happens. And listeners, thank you for joining us.
Because everyone else has got the same players. So if you've got him and he returns, you're on for a green, basically.
Yeah. And listeners, thank you for joining us with this episode with the quick turnaround. Do give the pod a like and a share and let your friends know if they are playing FPL as well about Planet FPL. Other than that, though, if you're enjoying a bit of a break over Christmas and New Year's, do that, and see you on Sunday. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, Matcha.